Did Marble Snap get harder? Or are you just quietly losing cubes without realizing it? Because if you came back to the game and thought, I'm playing smarter, I understand more, but this feels worse, that's not in your head. What's happening is that Marble Snap changed how it punishes mistakes. It's no longer hitting you with obvious losses. It drains you slowly, one cube at a time, in ways that your brain is bad at detecting. And if you don't understand that shift, you can't play technically better than you ever have and still feel stuck, frustrated, and exhausted. So in this video, I don't want to break down decks or mechanics necessarily. I'm going to explain why the game actually feels harder, what actually changed under the hood of the game, and how we can realign your thinking so that way Snap begins to make sense once again. When you return to a game like Marble Snap, you don't return as a blank slate. You return with expectations that were trained into you during the earlier versions of the game. So early Marble Snap was kind of expressive in a weird sense. It rewarded the big dramatic moments. You either won big or you lost big. And the reason was usually a lot more obvious. So from a psychological standpoint, that kind of feedback loop is incredibly reinforcing. So your brain learns quickly, right? It learns when cause and effect are clearly linked. Play a card, big thing happens, outcome feels deserved. But that, well, it trained something very specific, a mental model of what playing well basically should look like. So when you come back now and those same signals are missing, your brain interprets that absence as friction, as unfairness, as loss of control. But what actually happened is that feedback became subtle instead of dramatic. That's because modern, current 2026, modern Marble Snap is a much quieter game. This is where psychology actually matters. The human brain is really good at learning salient feedback, right? Loud losses, dramatic wins, obvious mistakes. We struggle much more with environments where the feedback is indirect or delayed or cumulative. So modern Snap operates almost entirely in that second category. Most losses are dramatic. Most mistakes don't look like mistakes, and most bad decisions still feel like reasonable ideas in the moment. So instead of losing because your combo failed, you lose because you stayed in a game that you most likely were gonna lose no matter what. It was already pre-decided in a weird way. So instead of snapping late and losing 8, you snap reasonably and you lose 2 again and again and again. Your brain doesn't flag that as danger, so emotionally, it feels like you're playing fine, while numerically, your progress just stalls. And that disconnect is what creates frustration. Not because you're failing, but because the game clearly stopped telling you why you are failing. So Marble Snap didn't become more difficult, it became more cognitively demanding. Skill expression shifted away from execution and towards early recognition, towards risk assessment, towards emotional restraint. These are the skills that the brain learns slower because they don't come with a big flashy reinforcement. Early Snap rewarded expression. You showed your hand, you committed to a plan, you asked your opponent to beat you, and that feels good because it aligns with how humans just like to compete. We enjoy revealing our intent, testing it, and seeing a very clear outcome. However, modern Snap often rewards exactly the opposite. You win by not committing. You withhold information. You win by threatening more possibilities rather than showing certainty in a very obvious one. So from a psychological point of view, this creates internal conflict for returning players because you want to play the game, right? The game wants you not to play certain turns though, and you want resolution, but the game is now rewarding ambiguity. That tension is exhausting. And if you don't consciously reframe what success looks like, you're gonna burn out. So then approach something that players rarely admit. Winning in modern day Snap often feels unsatisfying. A 1 cube retreat doesn't feel like a victory. A snapped game that ends early and doesn't make it to turn 6 is incredibly anticlimactic. So from a dopamine perspective, that matters. The brain doesn't reward efficiency the same way that it's going to reward spectacle. So returning players often feel emotionally undervalued or underpaid for technically making correct decisions. But cube for cube, those small wins are the backbone of your progression. If you don't emotionally accept that, you're going to subconsciously always be looking for the big wins. And the big wins are also how the big losses now are hiding. The strongest Snap players today aren't the ones with the best decks or the fastest decisions. They're the ones who resolve uncertainty earlier. They can identify archetypes very quickly and interpret the locations very quickly as well. They understand when a game is already lost, even if it hasn't felt like it's been lost yet. This is a classic recognition skill we know as pattern compression, and the brain learns to collapse complex information into simple decisions faster. Returning players are still processing Snap as a turn-by-turn execution game. Veterans are processing it as a probability management exercise. That difference explains why Conquest feels incredibly punishing, because Conquest removes randomness over time. That exposes hesitation, emotional attachment, a lot more aggressively than Ladder really ever could. So here's the hardest truth about all of this. Modern Snap rewards restraint more than creativity. And returning players, they want to explore. They want to test new ideas. They want to use their collection, but the game now asks a much quieter question. Is this cube worth it? When that question isn't consciously integrated into your decision making, every loss feels personal instead of procedural. And that's the origin of burnout. Not from losing, but from not understanding why losing feels different. So the fix isn't more knowledge necessarily. It's simplifying recognition. You don't need more decks. You don't need more cards. You don't need 3-hour play sessions. What you need is to reduce the decision workload. Pick a deck a week. One snapping condition continually, one retreat condition continually. One goal per snap session. And when you focus with a reduced cognitive workload, it reduces your cognitive fatigue. And that allows your brain to relearn new loops of feedback. So when you get it all mixed together, and then when that all starts happening, the game stops feeling hostile, and it really starts to feel a lot more precise. So if Marvel Snap feels harder now than it ever has before, it's not because you're worse at the game. It's because the game stopped rewarding big, loud decisions and plays. And once you understand that, the frustration lifts and the game becomes much more readable again. So I hope this resonated in some way and gives you a different lens to look through if you're coming back to the game and feel like it really is a different game. That's because it is. So if you're ready to talk about it, let's talk about it. Let me know in the comments below. How does the game feel to you after a break? Whether it was a month, a year, 3 years? I want to know how modern Marvel Snap feels to you. Am I on base or am I off base? Hopefully, we can open up a very unique debate that addresses the real issues. So thank you. And as always, I'll see you next time.